Good morning, small human babies. It's Wednesday, November 11th, which means it's Veterans Day. So take a moment today to make sure that you thank, the veterans that you know for the sacrifice and service of their time. It's something that obviously is important to the way that our country works and keeping us safe. So if you know anybody who served, make sure and acknowledge them because that's one of the most honorable things you can do for other people. So, how about that win last night, huh? I really thought for a while my house was going to blow away and maybe land on a witch. That's why I chose Dorothy to be on this slide today. So, some quick reminders. Don't forget about that What is Psychology assignment that a few of you guys still owe me. You're running out of time on getting a chance to hand that in. Remember, I'm only taking things for 7 days after the due date. It was due last Thursday, so you've only got like a day left. So please make sure to get that in. Zeros in the grade book are not going to help any of you guys get anything done here. So, take care of things. And if you're stuck on it and need help, let me know. Last reminder for the day, don't forget that we have a test on Friday. That test is going to be a combo of like some multiple choice and matching with a few short essays. Yes, it's gonna be open note. There's no way I can stop it from being, but make sure that you're getting that done. The way that's going to work, I'm going to share that link with everybody in class once we get done doing trivia and let everybody work on it. I'm going to set a due time on like when I would like to have it by, and then I'll grade them and get you your scores back. Obviously, if you would have questions on that, please let me know. But so today, what we're going to do is we're going to explain the goals of psychology. What is psychology trying to accomplish? And then we're really briefly going to go through a really brief history of psychology. But the big things I want you to get out of it are the idea of structuralism versus functionalism, because we're going to get into more of that other kind of stuff Thursday when we wrap stuff up. Last but not least, that crash course assignment, the 10.5-minute video with the 9 questions is due Thursday by midnight. Please make sure you're getting those things done, writing things in full sentences, asking questions if you need to. All right, so here we go. Topics for today. And remember, if you're stuck, let me know. In class, we did a little quick review, so make sure, just flip through your notes fast, make sure you know the definition of psychology, what an applied psychologist is, what a research psychologist is, why psych's a science, what's a hypothesis, different steps in the scientific method, some of those kinds of things, okay? All right, so here we go. A little bit of a weird slide because I used the information as the background, but there are basically 4 goals of psychology. We want to be able to describe behavior accurately and scientifically, if at all possible. We want to be able to explain behavior. Now, what I mean here is we want to be able to explain the behavior accurately, but we're not necessarily guessing about what's going on. We're trying to come up with logical causes based on our descriptions. Okay, and we'll get into a couple of examples in a minute. The third goal is to predict. We want to be able to decide what we think is going to happen next so that we can move forward from there with a plan on how to personally act in this situation or how to try to help somebody move forward. And then last but not least, we want to try to control the behavior. Now, obviously, if it's a good behavior, we want to reinforce it or reward it so that we can get that behavior to keep happening. If it's a negative behavior or something we think is causing problems, we want to try to figure out a way to make sure that behavior stops happening. So we can take something simple. Let's say you got a puppy, okay? And that puppy, you're trying to train that puppy, but every time that someone came home, the puppy peed on the floor. Okay, I just described the behavior to you. All right, now we're going to try to explain that behavior. So think about what's a possible explanation for that. Okay, I don't know, maybe the dog is having to wait too long in between going outside, and so when people get home, it figures it's going outside. Maybe it's a nervous dog. There are breeds of dogs that are nervous, and so when they're around people, they tinkle a little bit. Maybe the dog has a medical problem. It's hard to say. So the prediction, I think that we're going to predict. We could go one of two ways on this. That's a behavior that's probably going to continue to happen throughout the dog's life because of the breed of dog or the way that particular dog is. Or maybe you would predict that, as the dog grows up and its bladder gets bigger, that's something that you can expect to go away. So controlling that behavior, we've had some interesting answers to this one over the years. But if you think about it, what could you do to control that behavior? I don't know, maybe you take the dog out to go to the bathroom right before every person leaves. Maybe you give it a reward when it doesn't tinkle on the floor. Maybe you, I don't know, maybe, you could come up with a million different reasons. I'll give you a more psychological example here. Let's say we're dealing with someone that has a mental disorder. Let's say we're dealing with someone that has, oh boy, phobia of clowns. Phobia of clowns. Let's go with that one. All right. If we're going to describe the behavior, we're going to say that person is irrationally afraid of the idea and of the presence of clowns. Okay. We're going to explain the behavior. We're going to talk about what that person goes through when they think about a clown, fear that a clown might be around someplace, or worse yet, a clown comes through the door. So we're gonna probably talk about things like anxiety, but body temperature goes up, sweating, they may faint, they may they may start to babble, all the things that you would expect to see out of somebody that's really anxious about something that's happening. Predict behavior. We could obviously say that we think this is something that we can treat and it can go away, or this is something that we don't feel like we can deal with, and this is going to be something that's going to be a problem for their whole life, and this person is never ever going to a circus or watching the movie It. Controlling the behavior, we could give the person an anxiety medication to try to help them deal with that overwhelming thought of clowns or the anxiety when a clown is present. To control the behavior, also maybe we could do some therapy. We could do some different kinds of, visualization and maybe even like exposure therapy. There's a lot of different ways that people can deal with phobias. But remember, those goals, obviously, the thing about those goals is they apply to a lot of scientific situations. Just kind of take that in mind as you're thinking about that. There's nothing fancy about these things. They're really straightforward. They're really simple. Okay. Now a brief history lesson. I've got Sigmund Freud on the slide, even though we're not really going to talk about Freud today in this brief history lesson. So people have probably been practicing psychology forever. I mean, it's hard to believe that there wasn't a time when a person didn't look at another person and think, wow, I wonder why they did that. And that's really kind of the core of psychology. Why do we do the things we do? The psychology really kind of gets its start from philosophy and other sciences that look at the whys and hows of behavior, or even ask the question like, what are we doing here? Okay. And so a lot of times, like many other types of science, the Greeks and the Romans get a lot of credit for the birth of psychology because of people like Socrates and Aristotle and the Romans that came after, asking the question, why? Why do people do the things they do? Why did you say that? Why do you believe that? And the debate that came from those questions. Modern psychology, though, as we know it, really started in 1879 with a guy named Wilhelm Wundt. Now, Wundt is considered to be the father of psychology because he opened a laboratory in 1879 that studied human thought and human behavior. And so Wundt was the father of this thought process called structuralism. He, along with, I think his name was Titchener, came up with this idea. And basically what it was is that the structures in your mind impact the way that you see the world and behave. To some extent, it's a little bit of an abstract idea, especially because the way that Wundt went about his research was by doing something called introspection, where he asked people to look at, common everyday objects, water bottle, and describe how they felt about it, how it tasted, how it smelled, how it how it felt, and then he tried to classify those thoughts and figure out where they would go in the brain. But we're talking about a time period where there were no CAT scans, no MRIs, no PET scans, no nothing like that. And so this concept that math is here and here only, and because I'm good at math, that part of my brain must be very highly developed. And since my little sister, Colleen, isn't good at math, maybe that part of her brain isn't as highly developed. It's really shaky. Okay. Now, Wundt did stumble across some important things that, there were different talents located in different parts of the brain. Like, for instance, your visual cortex is in the back, and a lot of language stuff is on the left over here above your ear. Movement is in the motor strip. He hit that idea, but to be able to think that you could classify it and that, if you read well, this would be more developed. If you didn't read well, this would be underdeveloped. That's a little, not so much. We can't open up someone's head and look at a structure and go, not a good reader because it's not as big. Now, structuralism was popular for a little while until William James, the father of American psychology, came along, and he developed a school of thought called functionalism. Now, why I like William James and why I think William James is pretty decent is he is one of the first psychologists that formally looks at the idea of free will, your ability to look at a situation and decide how you want to act in that situation rather than just using the structures of your mind to do things or relying on past experience. And so what functionalism means is that you will tailor or adapt your behavior to a given certain situation that you're in. And so I like to think about it this way. You out with friends on a Friday night are a different person than you are at the Thanksgiving dinner table with all of your family around. You are probably not saying the same things. You're probably not acting the same way. Your vocabulary is probably greatly different. Okay. And so you've learned to fit your behavior to the situation that you're in. Okay. You've learned to be able to do that. Now, functionalism and structuralism, I think I could see where both are probably a little bit correct. But then obviously psychology keeps evolving. You have Freud and the theory of psychoanalysis. The idea is that things that have happened to you in your life that you don't remember impact your behavior. There's humanism. It's all about what kind of person you are or the person you're trying to be. And so we're really going to kind of get into a lot of those ideas tomorrow. Now, what I'm going to do for tomorrow is before class, I'm going to preload the slides. I'm going to take screenshots, and I'm going to preload those screenshots into Classroom because the notes tomorrow are they're meaty, kids. There's a lot going on. But if you have any questions on any of the things we talked about today, please let me know. Reach out. I hope you're well. I hope everyone around you is well. Hope to see you soon. Remember, get those assignments done and the test on Friday. Bye-bye.